You're listening to the Minutes on Growth podcast, the show that brings you mindfully curated insights into relationships, spirituality, personal development, and everything in between, with your host, Tannaz Hosseinpour. Hi, everyone. It's Tannaz Hosseinpour, and welcome to another episode of Minutes on Growth. Today, I have the lovely Yasmen Ahmed with us, a UK qualified cognitive behavior therapist, neurolinguistic practitioner, and clinical hypnotherapist. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. I've been wanting to have you on here for so long.
Literally, we've been wanting to do this for so long, so I'm so glad we have the time now to finally connect and, hopefully serve your audience as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, let's dive right in. You're a therapist. Did you always want to be a therapist? Why did you become one?
I love that question. So, to be honest, when I was growing up in general, I was kind of a sensitive child, like a very sensitive child in general. So when I was growing up, I always felt like it wasn't really safe for me to speak about how I feel. And I always felt quite in tune with other people's feelings. And I would feel things more than like other children, yet I wouldn't ever say anything. And I generally felt like, it might sound a bit cheesy, but I generally felt like my purpose was to actually help other people and actually bring some light into them. And I had this sort of like natural way of being able to say, kind of create that safe space for people, even before like even knowing what psychology was or, therapy, any of that. People would just trust me and they would share things with me. And I always loved that feeling of just like being able to then see someone feeling a bit down, and then after speaking to me or feeling a bit better, and then they feel like a lot better, and then I see that sort of transformation. I'm like, wow, okay. So that was like a seed that was kind of planted. And then I was always just super intrigued by like why we do things, how can we actually be better? Because my dad and my mom are both like, they work in academia, so they've always been like very like education orientated. How can we continue to grow? How can we continue to get better? Mm-hmm. So having that background they always pushed me to kind of be better, do better. It was like, how could, but not only academically, but also personally. So that's how I was like, okay, I really want to go into psychology. I really want to dive into being able to then tap into that sort of potential, so that I can help others do so as well. And then whilst doing that, be able to create that safe space, something that I really craved growing up myself. So being able to not be judged and truly be listened to, which is so key, I think, especially in today's society.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So you took something that you felt was missing in your life and you kind of brought it into reality and you brought it into existence. That's so beautiful. I love that. Okay, tell us this, in your opinion, how important is mental health? Because we're hearing about it more and more, especially, with this whole pandemic and being locked in for so long. The mental health conversation came back to the forefront. So what's your take on that?
This is so key, and we've come such a long way from where we were years ago. Like even the fact that we have like a mental health awareness day and people are starting to speak about it's become quite a common conversation. So, which is really important, yet there is still misconceptions. There is still lack of clarity of what mental health really is. And there is still that stigma as well. But mental health isn't just mental health, it's everything. It's emotional health, it's social health, it's how you feel from a day to day. And there isn't that sense of like, you can't, like, people feel like they have to qualify to say, oh, I have mental health struggles. But no, you could have such a happy childhood, you could be completely okay, and then suddenly something happens, you lose your job, you're in an unfulfilling relationship, and then you go through mental health struggles. There's no like external way of the way you're meant to look to have mental health struggles in general. So it's really important for us to then start to demystify the misconceptions that we have and the idea that we have to look a certain way to have mental health, and normalize it. We all go through struggles. We all have things that we find difficult, and that's okay. So that's why it's really important for us, because we're in such a fast-paced type of society. We're always on autopilot, And that's not the way us humans are meant to operate, where it's breaking sort of the nature and how our spirit truly is. So that's why it's important for us to bring in that conversation of like how we're really feeling, rather than just, you know, being on autopilot, and recognizing that.
Yeah, I love that. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's so important for us to remove this, you know, the taboo-ness of seeking mental health resources. And I remember when I went to therapy when I was 18, even back then, like, as much as therapy was more common, still people thought that, you know, you had to kind of be, I don't want to use the word crazy, but you had to be crazy to go to therapy. Like, it wasn't just a normal thing to do. There was so much stigma attached to it. And I think that as a teenager going to therapy at that age, wanting to understand my thoughts better, and at the same time being faced with such a backlash from society about what therapy actually, you know, stands for them, it kind of brings in an element of shame. Have you noticed that with like some of your patients where or clients where they're carrying shame for being in therapy?
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the biggest beliefs that we have to work through first. It's that sense of shame that, you know, there's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was something that was actually wrong with the traditional psychological model that we used to like operate from, that it's the patient or the client comes to you thinking that something's wrong with them, and it's like, I want to be fixed, but you're not broken to be fixed in any way. So it's important for us to actually begin to, like, if there is no shame in feeling certain ways, there is no shame in struggling, there is no shame in any of that. So things have changed from our parents' generation and their parents' generation. So again, it's normalizing that, and then not also feeling guilty for asking for support.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us feel like it's weak to ask for support, but it's literally the complete opposite. It actually takes a lot of courage to actually recognize that you require support. We're human. We all have our moments, and that sense of community, that sense of knowing that you've got a support system, is so key.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
For our emotional health.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, I think about vulnerability and what a strength it is to show it. I never realized this until years after therapy, because when I was in therapy, I thought it was actually a weakness. I remember the first couple of sessions, I wasn't even sharing the truth with my therapist because I was like, oh my God, what if she judges me? What if she thinks, you know, I'm not good enough, or there's something wrong with me, or what if I'm broken? And then later on in the years, you know, the more people I came in contact with and the more discussions that were taking place around mental health, you know, I realized that, wow, it's a sign of strength to be able to say, you know, I need help. I just need help. It's not that I can't do it on my own, but I would rather get there with the support of someone else.
Absolutely. It's like we all have stories, we all have like wisdom to share as well. So you don't have to do everything yourself. And in a sense of like being able to go to a therapist, or, you know, even a coach or someone who has the way of knowing like from A to B, and they can help you do that because they've either gone through it themselves or they have the wisdom to be able to do that, and share with you like a blueprint, or share with you things that you might have never even knew throughout like your whole life. So it's such a journey of growth. It's like therapy is, it's not just about healing, but it's about growing. It's about growing and really tapping into who you truly want to become.
I love that. What are some of the things you wish you'd known earlier?
Oh, there's so much, so much. I remember when I was, I trained in clinical hypnotherapy as well after training as a cognitive behavioral therapist, because I wanted to dive deeper. I was on this like mode of like, I need to learn, and I want to learn everything that I can to then be able to support others. And one of the biggest things I learned there, it was such a like aha moment. It was just like the fact when I learned all about the subconscious mind and how that controls literally 95% of our lives, and the power that it has, that something that we were never taught in like the education system, something we were never taught even in like traditional therapy in general. So it's that power of the subconscious mind, that the fact that we can like things that we can repeat or use emotion to be able to then help us get to where we want to be. So understanding more about subconscious mind was definitely something I wish I knew like earlier. And the fact that the words that we use and how we speak to ourselves really impacts us, and not just on like an emotional level, but on like a physical level, on a biological level. So it's the words that we use and the energy that gives off. And with that, it's like the labels that we were given as young children. I think that took me time to be able to like uncondition them, because I got called quite a few things growing up, and then I took them as truth. But just because you got called something or you have a certain label doesn't make it true. So it's all these sort of realizations like, wow, okay, then everything I learned, or everything that was, every experience I had, has fueled me to become who I am today. But that doesn't mean I can't change. That doesn't mean that I don't have the power to change. So it's very empowering.
Wow, I love that. And I love that you mentioned labels as kids, because you're absolutely right. Like what we hear someone call us, we just take that as part of our identity, and we just go with it. And we're on autopilot, as you said. And then years later we have like, an aha moment, or, we go through a life, like a very difficult circumstance, and we have like an identity crisis where like, who are we? It's, I don't know if you've experienced that, but I experienced that after I finished university, and I had no idea who I was besides being a student, because my whole life I was told that I was a really good student. So I just took on that identity as, like a full-time student. That's how I felt. So when that finished, I was like, okay, if I'm not studying, then who am I? Where does my worth, my sense of self-worth come from? It was a very difficult journey to figure out what other parts of me existed within me besides this label that I had placed on myself.
Wow, that's very powerful. And I love that you shared that, because a lot of us do go through that. And for me, my identity crisis stemmed from a few years ago when I hit like a very low point, like emotional and physical, like rock bottom. And it was when I was in that state, then I started questioning everything, and started to see like why. I tried to understand why I'm feeling the way I am. It wasn't just I had a lot of physical issues as well. Like I was a lot of chronic pain, and yet there was no medical explanation. So I was like, okay, there has to be something deeper going on. So it's interesting how certain things that seem very scary, like an identity crisis, or like example what you said, like you don't know who you are outside of school or outside of being a student, or like hitting a rock bottom, or having like physical sort of pain. That's always a good reminder then to allow us to then go on this journey. So sometimes it's because I always say like when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. So you have that sort of mindset. So it's everything truly happens for a reason. That's a core belief that I really have.
I love that. And that's a core belief we share. I definitely agree with you. I think when I was a child, my dad always gave me this analogy that just stuck with me. He's like, life is like a coil. And when you're at your lowest point, when life pushes you to the lowest, and the coil is kind of like compressed, once you remove your hand from that coil, it flies up to the highest point possible. So, whenever I hit rock bottom, I always think that, I'm just a compressed foil. And once life removes its hand off the coil, it's going to be the highest point. So it's a good belief to have, actually. It's a very comforting belief to have.
I absolutely love that. I love that. So created such a powerful visual as well. Like when you were just saying, my eyes actually watered. I was like, that is so powerful, because it just shows that like, like success or what you truly want, like it's still there, but you've just got to hit that point and then you'll just spring upwards.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Okay, tell us, how can we build a better mental health and well-being system for ourselves?
Yeah, so this is actually the biggest thing. One of the biggest things I think we need to actually begin to recognize is to know that we are in the driver's seat, and that we get to choose how we want to show up. I think we live in, like, I'm guilty of this myself, trust me. Like, we know it's just kind of go into that victim mindset, or, you know, we sort of blame everything else outside of ourselves for where we are now, like the journey that we're on now, or something happened or unhappy. We then project that outwards. When we do that, then we take any power away from ourselves, and we can't then make any change, because there's like, the change isn't from me, it's from everyone else. And if you're going to live your whole life waiting for external things to change, you're just going to stay stagnant. So the first part is recognizing that you're in a driver's seat. And then I always say, like, when we want to make change, or we want to focus on our emotional health or mental health, to go back to basics. I think we overcomplicate things. We're like, I'm going to meditate for, like, you know, an hour a day, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go for like 2-hour runs, and like, it's too much. We can't then consistently do it. So it's going back to basics and focusing on the little things, like maybe having more breaks in nature, be outside, go for a 5-minute walk. Just be mindful of the energy that you're surrounding yourself with, including family, friends, what you're consuming, the food. It's mind-body connection, the food that you're consuming, the media that you're consuming. Just going back to basics of how you're living your everyday, and then finding ways that you can then adapt it to help your emotional health, and being aware of that. So that's,
I love that.
definitely. And it goes back to, you know, like, bringing awareness to what we're feeling. Again, going back to, like, how we said, like, we're living on autopilot, and we're just on this sort of carousel, just going round and round and round, and we're not getting anywhere then. So it's really bringing awareness to that, and asking good, like, reflective questions, like, whose life am I living? Where do I want to be? How do I want to feel on a day-to-day basis? And then matching that up with how the actions that you can begin to take.
I love that. I love that. You said, the first thing that you said reminded me of a Rumi quote where he says, you know, yesterday I was so clever, I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, and I want to change myself. And it just reminded me of, like, the importance of, as you said, taking accountability for our own life, and to realize that, you know, we can't change life. We can't change other people, but we can change ourselves, and we can, you know, enhance the quality of our own life by enhancing the quality of our own thoughts and our emotions. And as you said, being so mindful of it and bringing awareness into it. And we've talked about this before, the power of intention, setting intentions for our life and taking inspired action. So I literally loved all of the 3 tips that you provided us with. I think if we all implement them into our life and we take them on, you know, the world can become a much better place for us. Our own experience of reality is going to become better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when we take that responsibility for ourselves, that will then enhance everything else around you, or enhance the people that you love, you know, the relationships that you have with them, or enhance the certain environment that you're in, the energy that you give off. It's like a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't realize how powerful it is when we begin with ourselves. And then it has such a knock-on effect on everyone else.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Give me, what's your one last insight that you'd like the audience to hear?
Wow. Well, then, honestly, I truly believe that we need to begin to give ourselves permission to change. I think we get stuck in certain patterns or certain ways of being, and then feeling like there's no way out.
Mm-hmm.
But I want this to be a reminder for everyone who is listening that you're not stuck. You can actually change. You can create a life that you truly want. You can become the person that you truly want, but it just takes action and consistency. So it's breaking that pattern, and then knowing that you can do that yourself, and really having that self-belief. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's taking that one tiny step every single day that's like moving the needle forward towards where you want to be. So you're not stuck. You're not, no matter where you are in life, there is a way out. So that's the biggest thing. I think that's it's giving ourselves that permission to not stay stuck.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Yasmin, for sharing your insights and your wisdom with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Honestly, thank you so much. It's been absolutely incredible. I'm so glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah.
I hope this serves your audience in the best way.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yasmin, and thank you everyone for listening. Speak soon. Thank you for joining us this week on Minutes on Growth. If you enjoyed today's episode, then make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now.